Are the Social Security assumptions too optimistic? Ooh. So remember, the Social Security trustees, they have three assumptions they're looking at. Intermediate is a big one. 50% probability would fall in the intermediate category. Then we get the low cost, 25% of probability would fall in the low cost. Then the high cost, 25% of probability fall in the high cost. These assumptions are based on a million different things, interest rates, growth of the economy, all that. But what we're going to talk about here is fertility, mortality, and immigration right here. So Alicia Manel over at the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College says right here, are the Social Security trustees too optimistic? And she says right here, U.S. fertility rates have generally been falling since the end of the baby boom. And right now we get a fertility rate of 1.63. And just to keep the population to maintain the same population, women need to have maybe men, because men can have babies now. Who knows? Women need to have a baby. How dare I misgender? At the two. They need 2 children per lady to maintain the population level. And right now our fertility rate is 1.63. If we actually look at the Social Security Trustees report, and we look at okay, I hate those weeds, man. You can't be eating grass and weeds. We say they expect the fertility rate to go from 1.64 all the way up to 1.90 in the next 20 years. That's the intermediate. The high cost, or I should say right here, the high cost right here is it goes down to 1.6. High cost means we got to throw more money at it. There's not enough people contributing. That's what that means. And that's where we are right now. We're at 1.63 right now. So how are you going to get women to have more children? I mean, you're going to give them a $2,000 earned income tax credit? That's not going to do it. You're going to give them a $2,000 child tax credit? That's not going to do it. It might do a little bit on the perimeter, but you can't mandate morality. You just can't. And as such, we're going to have a big change in the way people look at things, a jubilee of sorts. We're going to have a debt jubilee or something to get the women spouting kids, man, and staying at home, not taking on debt to go some stupid communications degree at freaking Idaho State or something like that costs $80,000 and has no payoff. We're just going to have to do something as a society. And that's something, a little bit can help from the government, but it's got to come from the morality that we have to deal with. And the morality is starting to come around a little bit better, but still, man, we're going to have a major change in our society in which to get women to have more babies. A debt jubilee is the way to go, 100%. And we can talk about the ways to do that. I haven't really thought that through that much, but that's going to happen. We got to get people to have a house, to get married, not to get jiggy with 8,000 dudes or chicks or anything like that. We've got to increase fertility rates. And the only way to do that is to have one of the only ways is to make sure that people can own a home and raise children in one single job. You know what I'm saying? Just like the old days. That's just a fact. That means you might not be able to go to freaking Hawaii every 6 months or something like that. But man, we got to have some kind of debt jubilee at some point. Right. So that's one thing that Alicia talks about. The other thing that's very interesting to me is mortality. All right. So Alicia also talks about what happens if we have, if we live longer. What happens if people live longer and we deport millions of immigrants? Well, obviously we got to deport millions of immigrants. That's what we got to do. But here's mortality tables as well. So what happens here? The larger the decline in mortality tables, all right, i.e., the longer people are expected to live, the higher the cost. So less kids being born and then people living longer, that'd be a high cost assumption for Social Security. It costs more to fund it because we don't have enough people working to fund it, if that makes sense. So we have less people working and more people relying on it. That's going to be a high cost. Very interesting, though. So if we look at this number right here, mortality tables right there. So the mortality rates have dropped from 1940 to basically 2022. These are still somewhat subject right here. The mortality tables have dropped by about point. I forgot what I had in there. Hold on a second. We dropped by 4,907 over the course of 82 years. Is our future value 82, and have dropped by 0.82% a year. All right, mortality table, i.e., people are living longer by 0.82% a year. Not a full percentage point a year, but 0.82, which is right in line with what their intermediate assumptions would be. So if we take this right here from 2025, 4201 is their present value, 2539 is future value. That's going to be 75 years, zero payment. That 0.669% is a decline in the mortality tables, what their expectations are. So people are going to live longer, but it won't be on the same trajectory as what have been over the last 80 years. All right, so the mortality tables are still decreasing, i.e. you're living longer, but not nearly to the same extent that we did over the last 80 years or so. I tend to agree with that. On the other hand, they expect, that's their intermediate. On the high cost one right here, they think the mortality table is going to drop to about 1.1% a year, which is higher than what it was over the last 80 years. And I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it could. I don't know. I don't think so. But that would be a concern for sure. Absolutely. If we have a higher mortality decline, lower fertility rate, higher mortality decline, lower fertility rates, you're going to have, potentially you could have even a higher cost Social Security where the government's going to need to fund it higher, 100%. What if there's a way to do that? I'm just thinking out loud. What if there's a way to do that? All right, then they got immigration, which is interesting here too. And you can see, even on all these scenarios, you're going to see we're still netting immigration. Total net change, historical data. You can see we went from 610,000 of new immigrants in 1980, 610 is our present value, to 2.7 million, and that supposedly includes illegals as well. 2733 future value. That's over what, 45 years? Yeah, 45 years. That means immigration increased by 3.38% a year. In terms of how many people have you taken, we had 100,000. Now we have 2.733 million, and you can see the temporary or unlawfully present right there. All right, how many came in? Look at that. Our Sniffy Joe, look at this dude. Insane. And how he went out, not very many. I just don't, what was the Democrats thinking? Like, why did they say that's acceptable? It's crazy to me. On their intermediate, we would expect to have 1.23 million a year net new immigrants. That's an intermediate. That would be unlawful and legal. 1.235 net immigrants every year. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. COVID, under the high, they go low cost, would have 1.655 million new immigrants each year. 1.655, and you can see that right there. And you can see right here, 2025, 2.889, that drops to 1.867. Not something we want to see. 2.102, then it drops to 1.235 under the intermediate. That's what we want to see. On the high cost, with less immigrants, our immigration numbers drop from 1.335 million a year to 842,000. And here's again the inflow of illegals, 850,000. The outflows, 250,000. Then we got a change in status, like they become nationalized, which I don't understand. And then we still have 247,000 here that are illegal, which is crazy to me, but whatever. Why is that acceptable? I don't understand that, but it doesn't matter. So you could make an argument fertility rates are too low, and they're probably not changing anytime soon. You could make an argument that the immigration things are going to hurt Social Security. I think that's a legit argument to make. I always find it funny, though. So people, illegals aren't on Medicaid. They're not on Social Security, all this. I'm like, okay, so why are you guys griping when Trump cut back Medicaid then? That's the whole thing stupid. Yeah, they say the illegals aren't getting welfare. Okay, okay, whatever. Point being is that, but still, at the end of the day, with less people laboring, paying into Social Security, the money's got to come from someplace else. And then you could have an argument that mortality rates, they're going to decline more than what they have in the past. I just don't believe that's going to be true. I don't. But if that were to happen, it'd be a higher cost to fund Social Security. These are just facts, dude, which means there's got to be another source to pay for these things. And the other source is just government borrowing. But the government debt's going to kill us. Dude, I mean, look, I would actually tax, as I said a million times a Sunday, I would get rid of any kind of charitable donation. Maybe have a max. You get $10,000 charitable deduction. That's it. Something like that. But I've said this a million times. You got to raise the payroll tax unequivocally, 50 basis points on both sides. Raise the payroll tax a turn. If you have more than $1 million of income, you're qualified dividends. Income is taxed as ordinary income. Long-term capital gains is taxed as ordinary income as well. A million different things we could look at how to raise the revenue if we need to. I frankly don't think we do. But, so you think the government can do unlimited spending? No, never said that. When it comes to Social Security, though, I'm just not worried in the least, because we've seen, again, when the government takes the deficits, the recipients are the people who own the government bonds, or in this case, the Social Security people, the beneficiaries. The government takes deficits, Social Security beneficiaries take the surplus. That's just how it works. It's just a accounting trick. We're going to debit you and we're going to credit you. That's just that simple. But we shall see. We shall see. All right, God bless. Love your thoughts.